This guy, Godfrey Daniels, is walking into his new sophomore class at Manhattan Summoners High, trailing right behind another transfer student who happens to be a Pendragon. That name alone gets the whole room buzzing, since her family is basically legendary for producing dragon summoners generation after generation. She awakened her power at age 1, which was a literal global news story when it happened. Godfrey doesn't get that reaction. The second he mentions his last name, someone in class immediately blurts out, "You're the hero's trash," and everyone just laughs. His dad was a genuine war hero, died holding the line against 100,000 orcs the same day Godfrey was born. Big shoes to fill. Except he hasn't awakened his power at all, which in a world where early awakening without the ceremony is basically proof of greatness makes him look like a walking disappointment compared to his father's legacy. The teacher shuts down the mockery, but words don't really carry weight here. Everyone in this school is old money, legacy families, kids being groomed to run things someday. He used to dream about summoning something incredible and actually fitting in here. Feels laughable now. He gets assigned to sit in on the freshman awakening ceremony tomorrow since he still hasn't gone through his, which gets him more snickering from the class. He's used to it at this point. Class moves into a lecture about the very first summoner in history and his legendary summon. A king tier being who eventually vanished into some mysterious white dungeon gate, kicking off a broader lesson on dungeon gates in general. Godfrey tunes most of it out and just stares out the window. At break, one of the strongest sophomores in their year, Dale, comes over flanked by 2 other guys. He tries hitting on Isolde first, gets completely blanked by her, then turns his frustration on Godfrey instead, needling him about his dad dying the day he was born like it was some kind of bad trade. Godfrey doesn't take the bait and just walks past him. Then someone else grabs him from behind in the hallway. Green hair, sharp features, definitely more calculated than Dale. Turns out he and another lackey work for a quieter, more unsettling guy named Snow, who mocked Godfrey's last name earlier in class 2. The green-haired one starts needling him about his dad's summon being some gold-generating creature, joking he should be treating them to stuff after school. Snow tells them to back off, but then makes a show of accidentally leaving his shoelace untied, and shoving Godfrey toward it like he's supposed to tie it for him. Some twisted power display about where guys like him supposedly belong. Godfrey pushes back verbally instead of physically, basically calling him out for needing someone else to tie his shoes for him. Something shifts in Snow's eyes right after that, this faint, unnatural shimmer, and the next thing Godfrey knows, he's hanging off the edge of the cafeteria balcony 3 floors up, wind in his face, only saved because someone's got a grip on his jacket. People around them are freaking out, assuming he tried to jump. He puts it together fast. Snow just used some kind of beast ability on him directly. Isolde asks if he's okay, voice completely calm, which somehow says more than her face ever does. Meanwhile, the green-haired lackey, Siegfried, is straight up mocking Godfrey for not falling, and Snow just walks off with his lunch tray like almost throwing someone off the 3rd floor is nothing to him. That's what actually sets Godfrey off. Not the near death itself, but the fact that Snow's laughing about it. He pushes through the crowd straight at him. Siegfried throws the first punch, sloppy and full of openings. Godfrey grabs his arm and flips him onto the ground. Siegfried gets up furious and swings again, this time with real strength behind it, the kind that should crack concrete. Godfrey blocks it with his forearm and barely feels it. That's when it hits both of them at the same time. Siegfried's connection to his beast is gone. Whatever ability Snow used earlier apparently didn't just target Godfrey, it stripped Siegfried's power too. Right now, he's just a regular guy. Godfrey lands 2 clean hits and drops him. The whole cafeteria goes silent watching this happen. Then another one of Snow's guys rushes Godfrey way faster than he can track and beats him down hard, finishing with an uppercut that slams him into a wall. He blacks out on the floor. Snow looks disgusted by the whole scene and walks out without a word, and everyone scatters after him. Apparently, him losing his composure like that is somehow more unsettling to people than if it had been Dale. When the room clears, it's just Isolde left standing over him. She tells him flatly that giving him a fair fight was a mistake, since he was doomed from the start. He tells her he still made Siegfried pay for it, that for a couple minutes, Snow got to feel what it's like calling out to your own soul and getting nothing back. Same thing Godfrey's lived with for 16 years. She doesn't say anything to that, just watches as he staggers up, clutching what feels like a broken rib and heads for the exit. He wakes up in the academy infirmary, which isn't really for sickness. It's for kids who get wrecked in fights that are technically not supposed to go this far. Killing or maiming is banned on paper, but after what just happened, he's not sure the rules mean anything here. The nurse heals him up with some kind of golden magical bird summon, and comments that he's barely been here a day and already ended up in her bed. The school's built for monsters and the people who serve them, and apparently he looks too stubborn to be the second thing and too weak to be the first. Before he can process that, there's a knock and it's Isolde, dropping off food he never got to eat during lunch and asking the nurse to make sure he actually eats it. Underneath the tray is a note in her handwriting that just says she likes his face and not to overthink it. which obviously makes him overthink it immediately. The nurse tells him to actually rest since tomorrow's his freshman awakening ceremony, and reminds him that if he doesn't awaken something worthwhile now, he might never get anything beyond the lowest tier ever again. Next morning, the whole academy grounds are packed, freshmen plus a bunch of outsiders who paid serious money just to use Manhattan's famous awakening platform, known for producing stronger results than anywhere else in the world. He's standing there with his fists jammed in his pockets because this is genuinely his last shot. He never awakened naturally, so if he fails here too, that's it. Permanent proof there's nothing inside him worth summoning. And in this world, that basically means being nobody. Worse, his spot at this school is conditional. He needs to pull at least an elite tier beast just to keep his place here. There's 5 tiers total: low, elite, high, lord, and the legendary king or queen tier at the very top. So rare even actual dragons rarely hit it. Up on the platform, glowing with runes powered by 6 dungeon cores, the headmaster steps up, all sharp and severe, and announces they're starting immediately. No speeches. He looks down at his paper, then back up, and his eyes land directly on Godfrey. The first name is Godfrey Daniels. Godfrey walks up to the platform, headmaster stepping aside as he takes the center. Beside him is a woman holding some kind of tablet device, the thing that's about to reveal whether he's got nothing inside him or something. He's told to close his eyes, breathe, and he'll end up somewhere they call his soul space, where his summon's supposedly waiting. Everyone always describes the same thing, floating in darkness with their beast right there. But when Godfrey opens his eyes, he's standing at the base of a massive white marble staircase, wide as a highway, leading up to a towering wall with a giant wooden double door. There's no darkness anywhere, just sun blazing overhead. He genuinely wonders for a second if he somehow died instead of awakening. The moment he takes a single step, he's already standing right in front of the door, carved with a shield crossed over a longsword. He pushes it open. Back outside his body, apparently all hell breaks loose. The headmaster snaps at the woman holding the gauge, and she can barely get the number out. 12.1, king tier. And the potential reading doesn't even cap out. It goes past the maximum the scale can even measure. A golden summoning circle flares to life above Godfrey, bright enough that his whole class is leaning out the classroom windows squinting at it. Something crashes down out of the light. A knight in gold-layered armor and steel, 7 feet tall, shield in one hand, longsword in the other, a single glowing slit where a face should be. Snow immediately looks disgusted, since humanoid summons are considered weak compared to actual beasts, minus a couple famous exceptions in history. The woman with the gauge announces out loud that his summon reads as tier 3.0 with a potential of 6.0, completely different number than what she and the headmaster actually saw moments ago. Only the two of them know what really flashed on that screen first. The headmaster tells Godfrey he can step down, but Godfrey catches something in his face. Calculation. He wants him watched. Something doesn't add up between what he saw and what he's letting everyone else believe. Someone in the crowd mutters what a disappointing way to open the ceremony, summoning some ancient knight whose sword probably can't even scratch a real beast. Godfrey locks eyes with the guy who says it, and honestly, nothing about the moment actually phases him, because his head's somewhere else entirely. He remembers the door he walked through, the shield and sword symbol carved into it. Everyone always says the very first thing you see in your soul space is your true summon, but the knight wasn't the first thing he saw. The staircase and that palace-like door were, which means the knight might just be one piece of something much bigger. If there was one door, there might be others. Other knights, maybe. Back in class, everyone's staring the second he walks in. The kid who used to get mocked for having 0 summon now technically has one, and it's still somehow a punchline. Dale can't resist comparing him to his dad's gold spitting army leveling summon, calling him an upgrade from garbage straight into the garbage bin. Everyone laughs. A few people just look at him with pity instead. Siegfried, still holding a grudge from yesterday, announces it's almost time for combat class and that he wants to test the knight personally, and then walks out. The rest of the class trickles out after him, some pitying, some mocking, some just ignoring him. Only Isolde stays behind. "It's a cool night," she says. Godfrey points out the obvious, that the whole class is basically waiting to watch him get publicly humiliated in combat class. She shrugs it off. Every summon has its advantages. I bet your knight has his. Every summon has its advantages? What a joke, Godfrey thinks. What kind of advantage could a low-tier summon possibly have against the monsters everyone else is walking around with? Standing in the crowd inside a massive open-roof arena, he watches Isolde take the platform against Dale. Her summons a white wyvern, leathery wings, needled teeth, the whole terrifying package. Tier 5.5 with a current tier already climbing to 6.8. Dale's got an armored emperor bull, 7 feet at the shoulder, lightning crackling off jagged horns, black chitin plating strong enough to stop bullets. Both of them have been bonded to their summons since basically before they could read, so this isn't even close to a fair comparison to where Godfrey's starting from. Dale talks a big game about his bull hitting high tier with lightning at his command. Isolde barely responds. Her wyvern just stares the bull down. He signals the charge anyway, lightning building between the horns, and her wyvern breathes out white mist that freezes the bull mid-charge, ice cracking across the whole platform. Lightning shatters the ice from the inside, but by then the wyvern's tail already whips across its neck and sends it skidding, bleeding. Fight's over almost as fast as it started. The instructor calls it clean, points out Dale's real failure wasn't the tear gap. It was using his summon badly against a superior opponent. Isolde walks back to the stands, everyone's eyes following her like she's some kind of celebrity, which, fair. She glances Godfrey's way for half a second, and he silently mouths, "Cool summon" at her. She looks proud, he noticed. Next fight snaps his attention back. Snow against some girl with a snake summon. His summon's this massive butterfly with red glimmering wings, and it turns her entire snake, and the girl herself, to stone on contact. The whole arena goes dead silent. He casually snaps his fingers. The butterfly releases some multicolored glimmer that reverses it, and the girl collapses in tears, clearly traumatized from being trapped inside her own petrified body. The instructor tells him to go easier next time since these are his classmates. Snow just says he did go easy. Turns out his butterfly's tier 6.0, and its real terrifying trait isn't even combat. It's that the longer it stays bonded to him, the more attractive he becomes, which looking at him checks out. Then it's Godfrey's turn. His opponent's a girl with twin ponytails, already smug, clearly assuming this is a guaranteed win. Before he summons anything, he closes his eyes and recalls the exact words carved into the stone tablet he found in his soul space. Knight Captain of the Golden Order, hybrid type, tier 3.0, potential 6.0. An oath-bound soldier built to slay monstrous beasts, wielding absurdly heavy gear, and capable of some kind of blackout state, where he breaks past his normal limits and starts mimicking the abilities of whatever he's fighting. Godfrey decides to call him Mountain. Her summon turns out to be a massive iron-clawed crab, steel pincers strong enough to tear through walls. He calls Mountain out, and he lands a huge heavy, gold and steel, white cloak, sun emblem on his chest, shield raised, sword ready. She laughs and sends the crab in first, its claws smashing down on Mountain's shield. Instead of getting pushed back, the shield lights up with runes and blasts the stored impact straight back into the crab's shell, tearing gashes into it. Mountain follows up by cleaving straight through one of its claws. Blood sprays across the platform. Then he slams a boot into its chest, knocks it down, and raises his sword for what's clearly about to be a finishing blow. Godfrey panics and yells for him to stop. He freezes mid-swing, blade an inch from the crab's head. Dead silence. Even the instructor looks stunned for a second before rushing forward to grab the wounded crab and get it to the nurse to reattach the severed claw. Everyone around Godfrey is just staring, like they genuinely can't process what they just watched happen. Walking away from the arena, Godfrey keeps replaying Mountain's description in his head. Alchemically altered to slay monstrous beasts. That detail hits him harder the more he thinks about it. His summon isn't just some random knight. It's part of an order literally built to hunt beast-type threats, which, considering most summons in this world originate from actual dungeon creatures, means he might be sitting on something a lot more specific than he realized. You're walking next to a girl and your mind's somewhere else entirely. That's something, Godfrey. Isolde's voice snaps him out of it. She's walking beside him, backpack in one hand, faint smile on her face, telling him not to worry since the nurse already fixed the crab's claw. He admits he didn't expect Mountain to actually go for a kill like that. She says his reaction told her everything. And honestly, she was pretty stunned too, watching a 3.0 summon completely dominate something a full point above it. What really got her attention wasn't just the win, it was how clean Mountain's movements were. Precise, no wasted motion, nothing like the usual sloppy low-tier fighting style. She flat out asks if his summon is actually intelligent. He just shrugs and says, maybe. She shoves his shoulder and tells him to stop being smug about it. School lets out, and he assumes she's heading to the dorms like everyone else, until a black car pulls up for her specifically. Someone stepping out to open her door like she's royalty. Turns out her family arranged a private apartment off campus for her, instead of dorm life. She heads off, and he goes back to his own room, already itching to get back into his soul space and check out that second door he saw carved into the palace wall. After today's fight, he knows for a fact Mountain's armor isn't just decoration. That shield reflecting force back at the crab wasn't nothing, and there's clearly more to figure out. Campus is basically empty by the time he's walking back, which is why it's obvious something's off when he spots an upperclassman just leaning against a wall waiting, older, maybe 17 or 18, and the second their eyes meet, Godfrey can see exactly how angry he is. Turns out he's the crab girl's brother, and he's furious Godfrey flaunted his knight against his sister earlier. He summons an iron-scaled armadillo, current tier 4.0, notorious for its defense and speed, and it immediately rolls into a spinning golden sphere and blitzes Godfrey before he can even react, sending him flying across the pavement, except this one's got fire licking across its plated shell too, which isn't normal for this beast. His arm turns armored to match, and he raises a clawed hand ready to finish Godfrey off. Mountain intercepts just in time, forcing an exchange where the armadillo eats the hit instead of Sam. Sparks fly off its scales, but it retaliates hard. Claws blazing and even blocking with his shield sends Mountain skidding backward through cracked pavement. Sam smug the whole time, and Godfrey realizes the math isn't working in his favor. An elite tier summon versus his knight barely a rank above baseline. There's only one real option. He orders Blackout State, and Mountain's armor shifts from gold to dark crimson, sword turning obsidian black, shield the color of dried blood, and flames ignite around him that are somehow stronger than the armadillo's own fire. He slams the beast into a wall hard enough to crack the stone, and when it tries to roll defensively, he breaks the stance with his shield and lines up a killing blow. Sam's whole demeanor collapses, screaming for it to stop. In under 5 seconds, the entire fight flips. Mountain didn't just get stronger, he actually copied the armadillo's fire ability outright. He turns toward Godfrey, obsidian sword lowered, crimson shield steady, waiting silently for his next order. Godfrey calls Mountain back, letting Sam retrieve his own beaten summon. It's only been a few minutes since he first awakened him, and the toll's already brutal. Blackout State pushed Mountain from 3.0 all the way to 4.0, and Godfrey's body is paying for it, pale, shaking, breathing unsteady. Apparently normal for new summoners. Most people need weeks or even months before their bond can sustain a summon for more than a few minutes at a time. The strongest ones can eventually hold their summon indefinitely, but he's nowhere near that yet. He tells Sam to cherish the mercy he just showed him and walks past his frozen, humiliated face. I was wondering when you'd leave Isolde. Siegfried's voice stops him cold. He and Maldred are strolling up together, Snow trailing behind on his phone like this is all beneath him. Maldred doesn't even hesitate. Quills shoot straight out of his palm and bury themselves in Godfrey's forearms before he can react. He tries to summon Mountain, but the dizziness from the last fight hits first. Siegfried closes the distance in a green blur. Claws, morphed jade and razor sharp, grabs his face and slams his head into a wall hard enough to crack stone. He goes down instantly. Siegfried laughs it off like it was an accident, used too much strength, then crouches over him, wondering out loud what Isolde even sees in someone this weak. Meanwhile, Sam, still shaken from his own loss, watches these three casually destroy Godfrey, and something ugly settles in him. Some twisted comfort in realizing Godfrey's apparently nothing compared to actual talent. Snow barely glances at him, kicks his unconscious body against the wall like trash, and walks off, scrolling his phone. Godfrey wakes up to the nurse leaning over him, relieved he's conscious. She says his body's already tougher from awakening a summon, so it wasn't actually life-threatening, just enough shock to knock him out. She gently suggests he apologize to his classmates so they can all get along, and he nearly snaps at her. Apologize to people who literally want him as their lapdog? He catches himself and calms down, since yelling at her isn't going to fix anything. Lying there, he runs the math. Everyone else has had years bonding with their summons. He's had less than a day, but summons grow through battle and through dungeon cores specifically, and if he can push Mountain from low tier all the way to Elite 4.0, Blackout State could theoretically let him match a full 5.0 opponent, since his gear apparently lets him punch up half a tier above his base, meaning if Mountain hits 4.0 for real, he could threaten something as strong as 5.5. Next day at school, he's not even there apparently. Mr. Edwin announces he got severely injured and he'll be out for weeks recovering, expected back before the end of month ranking competition. Top 3 finishers get real advantages toward graduating with boosted summon potential. The class immediately starts gossiping. Siegfried loudly calls him a coward who ran off over a simple head bump. Someone brings up that it's probably actually about Isolde, that the top guys are annoyed she spends time with him instead of them. Isolde just quietly clocks Dale and Snow with a cold look, saying nothing. The girl he beat in combat class throws in her own dig, calling him trash, flaunting a hero's name in a school built for the great. Dale, weirdly, snaps back at her, pointing out her own brother only picked the fight because she got beaten by a mere humanoid summon. She shuts up fast, clearly not willing to push back against Dale specifically. Mr. Edwin eventually shuts the whole conversation down and moves on to lecturing about the 2 categories of summons, Chimera and Primal. Later, one of the girls in class, Cecil, overhears something in the staff corridor she wasn't supposed to. A teacher and someone else discussing a King tier reading that got flagged the day before, confirmed independently by outside authorities, except the summon in question doesn't match any known King tier profile on record, and the student attached to that reading is Godfrey. She's floored. King tier summoners are basically legendary. One of them apparently once declared himself a god, and the world barely managed to stop him. The idea that it's connected to the same guy who got publicly wrecked twice in one day feels absurd to her. She tries to write it off as gossip getting out of hand, insisting his summon was just some knight everyone already saw fight, except that just some knight beat both her classmate and her upperclassman brother on the very first day he ever summoned him, with 0 prior experience as a summoner. Something doesn't add up, and she knows it. Bag in one hand, plain white hoodie, black pants. Godfrey's walking through the airport back in Amazon City, his actual hometown. No one recognizes him at first, which is exactly how he likes it. Then, of course, he spots a group pointing at him like he's some kind of celebrity, right? This is the city where his whole shame to his parents' reputation started. Manhattan wasn't exactly better, but at least it was distance. A news screen catches his attention, some reporter warning about a spike in Green Gate dungeons showing up across several districts. theatrics, people going missing, citizens told to stay alert. Dungeon gates have been around for a century now. 3 types total. Blue gates you can clear repeatedly and they never close. Green gates that trap you inside with no warning until you clear them. And red gates, the worst of all, kind that once dumped 100,000 orcs on a city and killed his dad. He takes a cab home. Everyone in Amazon City knows his street. 20 minutes later, he's standing in front of a massive black gate and walls covered in artificial grass. His house rising up behind it, white, 2 stories, all glass. The gate slides open and he walks into a 10-foot flower maze that fills the whole courtyard. Intimidating to most people, but he's been navigating it since he could walk. Here's the thing everyone gets wrong about his family. It wasn't his dad's gold-producing summon that made them rich, it was his mom's. Her summon can heal basically anything, even regrow limbs, using water that never loses potency as long as she's alive. Officially it's classified high tier, but functionally it's worth more than a lord tier summon given how useful it is. Rich people come from everywhere begging for her help. That's also why they have the maze. Desperate people have tried breaking in more than once. He makes it through easily and finds his mom in the sitting room. Back to him, apron on, oven mitts still in her hands. Mid-phone call with someone from the hospital. She's telling them her son's coming home and she wants to be there for him after everything he's been through. The guy on the other end basically snaps at her that she can't take time off, that there are important summoners waiting on her, that he expects to see her in a few hours. She just says, "He's my son." Call ends. She turns around and freezes, realizing Godfrey heard the whole thing, his hearing sharper now since awakening. He tells her flat out he doesn't like how they use her. She just softens, kisses his forehead, says she made his favorite for lunch. After lunch, he walks her out with Victoria, their housekeeper. His mom asks Victoria to look after him, and then leaves through the shifting maze. Once she's gone, he heads back inside, and Victoria asks if he'll finish eating. He shakes his head, just watching her clear the table, thinking about how messed up it is that his mom's basically treated like property are because her summon can't fight, forced into non-stop work regrowing limbs for strangers, sometimes for months without rest. Is that the actual price of having a summon that heals instead of kills? Is that why the authorities let him into Manhattan without even having a summon himself, some kind of favor owed to her? He clenches his fist. One day, this stops being on their terms and starts being on hers, but that means he needs to get stronger first. He closes his eyes and drops into his soul space. Same endless white staircase, still just as surreal every time. He appears in the first chamber and Mountain's there, sitting on a stone throne, shield and sword resting against the armrests. He notices Godfrey, rises, kneels immediately. Godfrey tells him to stand. Looking around the chamber walls, there are carvings he hadn't noticed before. A knight with sword and shield next to some kind of chameleon creature, its body shifting colors. Other scenes showing it copying abilities from enemies it fought, turning from prey into predator over and over. Ancient text he can't read runs alongside the images, but the pictures alone tell him enough. So that's what alchemically altered actually means. Mountain isn't just some enhanced human soldier. He's something stranger, older. That chameleon's a chimera. Mountain himself is what they call the primal. Combined, they're a hybrid, something that shouldn't exist naturally at all. And ahead of him, there's a second door. He wonders if that one's a hybrid too. Godfrey checks out the symbol carved into the second door, a massive warbow with a lightning bolt inside a circle. Even with Mountain putting his full weight into it, the stone door won't budge. Eventually, he gives up for the night, pulls out of his soul space, and heads to his room to actually rest before diving into research on these Green Gate dungeons. The second he steps through his bedroom door, every instinct in his body screams danger. He summons Mountain before he even consciously registers why. His actual bedroom is gone. He's standing inside ancient medieval stone walls, cobwebs in the corners, crude, weathered floor blocks, like he's been dropped straight into the guts of some old castle. 20 meters ahead, 2 massive green-skinned orcs are waiting, tusks bulging muscle, radiating pure brutality. A green dungeon just manifested inside his own bedroom. That news report finally clicks into place. If this is how common these things are getting, people aren't just at risk anymore, they're on borrowed time. The orcs charge, screaming in some guttural language. Mountain meets them head on, his shield absorbing and reflecting the first one's swing hard enough to shatter its arm, then boots the second one into a wall. He crushes the first orc's skull with his shield, throws his sword clean through the second one's chest, pinning it to the wall, and by the time a third leaps down from a staircase landing to stomp him, its legs just shatter on impact with his shield instead. 2 more rush in, and he cuts them down mid-charge. 5 orcs under 2 minutes, all dead. Godfrey's just standing there stunned. Mountain's not just a summon, he's basically a walking fortress, and these are the same orcs that could turn a bodybuilder into paste. Stepping over the bodies, he starts testing what his bond actually lets him do. Turns out summoners get access to something called symbiosis, letting him inherit half his summon's physical strength, and something called echo, letting him directly use their gear, or traits. He focuses and manifests a full copy of Mountain's golden armor onto himself, and despite how massive it looks, it weighs literally nothing on him. That's apparently why he moves so fast, despite all that bulk. The weight just doesn't apply the same way through the bond. He tries echoing his weapons next. The armor came weightless, useless, but the sword and shield slam down heavy the second they manifest. He can lift the sword with his boosted strength, feels like maybe 22 kilos, manageable short term but exhausting over time. The shield's a different story, he can't even budge it. He dismisses it and just slings the sword over his shoulder instead. They push through a set of double doors Mountain kicks open, into a grand hallway lined with weathered pillars. 4 new enemies wait, but these aren't regular orcs. 8 feet tall, crimson skin, tribal tattoos, massive two-handed axes. They charge like rhinos. Mountain's shield eats the first hits and reflects enough force to gash their arms open. Godfrey moves in himself this time, takes one's head clean off with a wide swing, dodges another's swing, counters with a rising cut, shoulder bashes it back, then finishes it with his sword through the chest, right as Mountain's blade comes through the other side of the same target. Turns out he'd already handled the remaining 2 on his own. He flicks the blood off his sword. Godfrey actually laughs. First time in 16 years he hasn't felt completely powerless. Fighting alongside him feels incredible. One more door ahead. He points it out and Mountain falls in beside him, sword resting on his shoulder, no hesitation. One solid kick and the doors blow open. Whatever's waiting in there, it's the boss room. Godfrey kills the echo effect fast, armor dissolving back into nothing, leaving just the long sword in his hand. He's already running low, and that's a genuinely bad sign because whatever's standing in the middle of this boss chamber makes everything they've fought so far look like a warm-up. 8.5 feet tall, jet black skin, heavy iron plating, skull pauldrons, an axe that looks like it could split a car. It growls something at them, low and emotionless, basically asking about the dead orcs outside. No pity in its voice, just judgment. The aura coming off this thing is suffocating. Godfrey's calling this elite tier without even needing confirmation. Before he can warn Mountain, he's already moving. The clash rocks the entire room, an airburst of pressure blowing dust everywhere. That axe was aimed straight at Godfrey's head and he didn't even see the swing. Only the aftermath of Mountain barely getting his shield up in time. The strength gap is obvious immediately. The axe sinks into his shield hard enough to cancel the reflect entirely, and his boots crack the stone floor, just absorbing the impact. Godfrey orders blackout state and ducks behind a pillar. Mountain's armor goes crimson black, and he rips a deep gash across the orc's stomach, but his stomach drops watching the wound close almost instantly, flesh knitting back together like nothing happened. This thing regenerates. It keeps attacking recklessly, clearly relying on that regen, stomping and grabbing Mountain by the shoulders, forcing him to a knee, then a knee strike to the jaw and a spinning kick that sends him straight through a stone pillar. Godfrey realizes what it's actually doing, fighting sloppy because it thinks the healing covers for it. Except Mountain gets back up out of the rubble, his cracked armor sealing itself, shield gleaming fresh again. Turns out he regenerates too, just stronger, more permanent about it. He charges back in, staggers the orc, and Godfrey times his own strike from behind, his sword driving straight through the back of its skull and out through the forehead. It finally goes down for good, hitting the floor hard enough to shake the whole chamber. He catches his breath. That thing had to be at least Elite 4.3, way beyond anything reasonable for what should have been a normal green dungeon. Mountain's armor shifts back to gold, cloak back to white, and Godfrey notices a glowing red orb floating above the dais, the dungeon core, worth serious money on the market, but that's not what he's after. He tells Mountain it's his. He grabs it and the mana just dissolves straight into him. Godfrey feels the surge immediately, muscles tightening, bones denser, everything in him humming. Mountain jumps from 3.0 to 3.2 in just 2 days since first being summoned. On impulse, Godfrey punches a nearby pillar and tears a chunk clean off it, stone exploding everywhere. His knuckles barely register the damage. Once he actually echoes his gauntlets properly, he won't take damage at all, and he'll hit even harder. He's seen bodybuilders with strong summons lift cars before, always figured it looked exaggerated. Now that he's feeling it firsthand, it's genuinely intoxicating. It could easily go to his head. Should, probably. But he's spent too many years at rock bottom to let this make him arrogant. He's still nowhere near Siegfried, Snow, Dale, or Isolde. Not yet. The chamber dissolves, stone and blood fading away until he's standing back in his actual bedroom, punching bag right where he left it. He asks Mountain if he's finally at peace being back. Mountain spins toward the doorway instead, shield up, sword ready. Godfrey turns just as fast and finds Victoria standing there, pale, breathing hard, horror slowly melting into relief and disbelief on her face. Turns out she sensed the dungeon form and nearly panicked when she traced the mana signature straight to his room. She pushed the door open, expecting the worst, and instead finds him covered in green blood, grinning like an idiot with an actual knight standing beside him. She just blinks, clearly trying to process how the kid who barely summoned a useless humanoid survived whatever just happened in there. "Godfrey, are you all right?" Victoria asks, still cautious even after he tells Mountain to stand down. Most humanoid summons get looked down on because they're usually just golems or reanimated skeletons, stiff, brainless puppets puppets with heavy defense and nothing else going for them. But Mountain's different. He breathes, and every breath rumbles low enough to press against her chest like she's standing in front of an actual beast. Even Godfrey can feel how his presence outclasses what his tier number should suggest. Other summons just get stronger over time. Mountain feels like he's retracing steps back to some kind of true peak, which apparently makes his growth even faster. Like the difference between a beginner starting from 0 at the gym versus someone experienced coming back after time off, strength returning way faster than it should. He peels his shirt off, showing off the body he's built through years of martial arts, lean but defined, all of it earned through actual training rather than vanity. Since in a world where almost everyone can fight, he needed every edge he could get just to stand a chance against low-tier summoners. Victoria just scoffs, tosses his shirt back at him, tells him to go bathe, says she'll inform his mom about the dungeon. He tells her not to bother if she doesn't want to. Then, half joking, he asks Mountain if he needs a bath too. Victoria freezes and shoots him a look. He defends himself. He's seen summons on TV take baths before. She snaps back that those aren't 7-foot knights, and her and summons don't actually smell as long as they return properly to the soul space. He sends Mountain back through the portal, and Victoria watches him bow respectfully before stepping through, clearly stunned. It's intelligent, she says. He starts to answer but trails off, distracted by the window. From his room, he can always see his dad's memorial statue in the distance, except right now it's headless, ropes and construction gear wrapped around it, workers dismantling it piece by piece. He asks why they're tearing it down. Victoria sighs and explains the mayor's replacing it, some deal to honor the world's #1 guild for protecting the city, hoping it wins their favor. He just stares at the wreckage. That guild profits off everything they pull from dungeons. His dad fought and died for the actual authorities, closing gates before a disaster spilled out, never once chasing profit. And now they're tearing down his statue to flatter people who do exactly that. It's like thanking a stranger who gave you a free ride while ignoring the guy who actually drove you home every day for years. After a long bath, trying to scrub off the anger, he makes it down for dinner right as his mom gets home, still in her work coat, immediately wrapping him up and smothering him with kisses like he's still a little kid. Telling her he's 16 has never once worked, not even on his last birthday. She asks how school went, if he's made friends, clearly avoiding any mention of his summon, probably trying to protect him from feeling worse about it. He thinks about how she used to climb to the rooftop just to look at Dad's statue. She must have fought to stop them tearing it down and lost anyway. Maybe if he weren't so weak this whole time, she wouldn't have had to carry that pain alone. She catches the shift in his expression and asks if he's okay. He forces a smile and tells her he's fine. Later that night, he's at his desk searching for info on green dungeons, most of it turning out to be paranoid false alarms. Then a message notification pops up. Isolde. She somehow got his contact info straight from the headmaster, apparently just asked for it outright, and messages him not to miss the competition at the end of the month, calling him pretty face. He asks how she even got his number. She just says she asked. Then she roasts his profile picture, half his face cut off in some post-bath photo, and starts bombarding him with her own selfies, claiming she's teaching him how to take a decent picture. None of it actually helps his photography. It does, however, make his face heat up a little more than he'd like to admit. Hair down, unguarded, teasing him over text, and she looks nothing like the cold, untouchable girl everyone sees in class. And he likes this version of her way more than he probably should. Talking to Isolde lifted Godfrey's mood for a bit, but the second he closes his laptop and looks out at the night sky, that headless statue's still there in the distance, ruining it all over again. He leans back, closes his eyes, and drops into his soul space, heading straight for the second door. The moment he gets there, he freezes. Part of the wall's actually changed, stone slowly turning into wood, like it's petrifying in reverse. Mountain's own door was completely wooden before he could summon him, so if the second door finishes the same transformation, it should open too. He tries to figure out what triggered it. Time doesn't feel right. Then it clicks. Mountain leveled up recently, going from 3.0 to 3.2. Growing him is apparently what's unlocking access to whatever's behind that second door. Next morning, Cab drops him off in a rougher part of the city. Jeans, black shirt, bone-forged dagger strapped to his waist, tier 2.1, sharp enough to cut through steel. A parrot perched on a railing screeches about his dangerous weapon, some low-tier language mimicking summon, annoying but harmless, before a nearby cat summon shuts it up with a puff of smoke. These weak common summons are everywhere, billions of them worldwide, none of them ever really growing past low tier. Background noise. He keeps walking toward a rundown 10-story building, apparently home to a company that shut down over a decade ago. Online reports say a summoner lost his hound in there once and never got the bond back. Everything about it screams Green Gate Dungeon, and the fact that no guilds bothered claiming it just confirms it's not considered worth their time. Torn yellow tape hangs across the entrance. Someone's already gone inside, and there's a car parked just out of sight nearby. Only real way to confirm it's an actual dungeon is to walk in himself. He pushes the door open and the world shifts instantly. He's standing in a massive cavern, nearly 50 stone cocoons scattered across the floor, each pulsing with faint blue light. Ceilings over 100 feet up, cracked just enough to let slivers of sunlight through. He steps back and hits a wall. No exit behind him. Classic green dungeon setup. 3 people are already deeper inside. A hulking bald guy who looks like an older, meaner version of Dale. A slim guy in a green beanie with a shrewd look. And a woman in tight leather with a crimson whip. Clearly the one actually running things between the 3 of them. Godfrey summons Mountain immediately. Normal people don't wander into dungeons casually. These 3 came here on purpose, and it's obvious why. The dungeon core. The big guy mocks him for walking in with a golem knight, calls him a fool. The woman, Natasha apparently, spits something about kids thinking they're brave right before they end up dead, tells him to leave. Godfrey just glances back at the wall behind him, then back at him, silently pointing out there's literally no exit for him to leave through. That gets under his skin, but before he can snap back, the beanie guy accidentally steps on some kind of pressure trigger stone. The whole cavern shakes. Something massive just drops somewhere above them. Godfrey sprints for the far end, past the maze of cocoons toward Nikita's staircase and a massive door. Natasha and her crew take off running for the exact same target. The cocoons start cracking open around them, and a 7-foot werewolf bursts free right beside him, black fur, claws, fangs, lunging immediately. Mountain's faster. He slams it sideways with his shield, then crushes its skull under his boot without breaking stride. Natasha's shocked, clearly not expecting a golem to move like that. She barks an order, and her 2 guys summon their own beasts, a massive Rottweiler-type hound and a lean black direwolf. Both sent straight at Godfrey while the trio shoves through the big door themselves. Godfrey echoes Mountain's sword into his hand and immediately uses exchange, swapping places with him so he takes the front line against the hound and direwolf, plowing through both like a tank while Godfrey sprints for the door. His armor might feel weightless to him, but everyone else absolutely feels the weight when he hits them. He picks up speed as Natasha's crew tries sealing that big door shut behind them. With his shield raised, he slams into it like a train, blowing it open, throwing her men aside. Natasha herself stumbles back as he looms over, already bloodied. Meanwhile, Godfrey's sprinting through what feels like 50 werewolves. One lunges from above. He slices its arm off before it can gut him, but that opens him up. 2 more close in faster than the first. He cuts through both in one arc and uses the momentum to launch himself forward, except a third crashes into him midair, jaws snapping. He genuinely thinks this might be it. His sword's useless this close, and it's already got his forearm in its teeth, but he echoes a gauntlet and vambrace onto himself and slams his fist into its snout hard enough to snap its head sideways. Doesn't let go, so he grabs its skull with both hands and breaks its neck himself. Tears free, stomps another one back and bolts up the stairs, grabbing a spear off some old skeleton along the way. Mountain slams the door shut right as he gets through and jams it with the spear. Half a second later, dozens of werewolves are throwing themselves against it. If they'd been a beat slower, Godfrey would have been shredded. Natasha's got the nerve to compliment him, actually smiling like she didn't just try to get him killed, saying maybe he could join her group someday. The casualness of it makes his stomach turn. The big guy starts to say something about no hard feelings and doesn't even finish the sentence. Mountain moves before anyone, even Godfrey expects it, and the giant hound's head is rolling across the floor before he processes what happened. The big guy coughs blood and drops face first, out cold, his summon dead. Then Mountain speaks. "You don't have to give the order, Prince Godfrey." His voice is dark, hoarse, clearly forcing itself out through something close to real rage. Everyone freezes, Godfrey included. The direwolf lunges. He shields it away into the door, then throws his sword through the wood after it, pinning nothing but proving the point. The beanie guy barely swaps places with his wolf in time to survive. The wolf comes back at Mountain, bites into his vambrace, and he just lifts it overhead and slams it into the stone hard enough to shake the whole cavern before snapping its neck. Beanie guy decides Godfrey's the weak link and lunges at him with 2 daggers. He doesn't make it. Blood bursts from his mouth mid-charge, and he collapses right in front of Godfrey before he even reaches him. He barely gets a breath before instinct screams, and he leans hard to the side as something whips past, a massive tongue from a 4-foot dark green frog. It strikes again too fast to dodge, but Mountain's already between them, taking the hit on his armor. Natasha snaps at him, clearly annoyed he's still got surprises left. Mountain grabs the tongue and yanks the frog off the ground, but midair it bloats into an 8-foot sphere and slams him into the ground hard enough to rain dust from the ceiling, then bounces and hurls him into a wall using its own tongue like a leash. That thing's a bloating venomous frog. Elite tier 4.5, potential to hit 5.0. Natasha uncoils her whip, venom glowing faintly along the blade, grinning like she's about to enjoy watching him turn into a stone ball, too. Godfrey tightens his grip on the sword, echo armor closing around him. Who said I have just a few tricks? Mountain's armor goes crimson, blackout state active. Except this time Godfrey feels it too, his own armor burning red, his eyes bleeding from white to black with a furious red glow in the pupils. Strength floods through him like something feral just woke up. The stone under his boots cracks as he charges, and Natasha's whip cracks the air in response. If there's one thing Godfrey's learned about Mountain by now, it's that his armor makes him a walking fortress with the speed of a warhorse. Natasha's whip hits him over and over as he charges, and none of it lands. Not even a scratch. He reaches her, swings his sword horizontal. She ducks and tries to trip him with a lash across his foot, but she yelps instead. His foot might as well be a boulder. He swings again. She dodges, then wraps her whip around his neck through the chainmail and yanks hard. He grabs it with his gauntlet and pulls back, ripping her off her feet straight toward him. One diagonal cut later, she's gone. Right then, Mountain finishes off the giant frog by turning its own venom against it. An even stronger version it can't resist, and the thing swells past its limit and explodes, shaking the ground. He walks toward Godfrey after, each step landing like dropped iron, and Godfrey's just frozen, staring at Natasha's body. Standing there in full armor, he looks like something out of a legend, but inside his helmet, his actual face is a mess, horror, fear, then something like grim acceptance settling in. He's never taken a life before. He lets it hit him fully, shaking, breathing hard. He didn't mean to kill her, but that's just the truth of fighting in a dungeon. Mercy gets you killed. If he had hesitated, he'd be the one lying there instead. He rests his sword against his shoulder and turns to Mountain. "You could speak, and you didn't tell me." He just gives him one slow nod after a long silence. They push deeper into the cavern together, both of them still burning through mana and blackout state. But he doesn't care. He knows they can't handle what's ahead without it, especially now that Mountain's copied the frog's bloating venom. They hit a ravine at the end of the hall, pitch black, no visible bottom. Godfrey tells Mountain to go first. He drops down, and immediately an undead werewolf, rotting flesh, exposed skull, lunges at him. He crushes it into the wall until it bursts. Two more come. Godfrey dives down and skewers one mid-fall. He handles the other. They push through the same way, over and over, him crippling, Godfrey finishing until they've dropped over 20 of them. They end up in an underground circular chamber, 6 pillars, a crimson core pulsing on a stone platform in the center, ceiling shimmering like frozen water, casting eerie moonlight. Something huge blurs out from behind a pillar and slams Mountain backward before turning on Godfrey, sending him into a pillar too. It's a werewolf, but standing fully upright, massive obsidian claws, clearly some kind of alpha, a werewolf king. Mountain and it trade brutal hits. His blade barely scratches it while his claws leave 3 deep gashes across his helm and send him crashing through solid stone. Godfrey charges in, exchanges places with him mid-fight. His sword bites into its arm, but stops dead against muscle like steel cable. Even the venom does nothing. This thing's natural. Stats alone outclass anything they've fought. No skill to copy, just raw power. It kicks him clean through a pillar, and only his armor keeps him from getting crushed outright. Mountain roars for it to come at him. It hesitates, confused why a knight that can't seem to hurt it keeps fighting anyway. He charges. It swings, expecting the usual shield block, but he ducks under it instead, and his blade lights up. Not steel this time, pure mana. A beam tears straight through the werewolf king, nearly cutting it in half. Godfrey's stunned. That's not a copied ability. That's something he built from scratch to overcome a weakness he couldn't fight around any other way. His own armor dissolves as his mana runs dry. He watches Mountain, dented and battered, but still standing, kneel down. "Prince Godfrey," he rasps. "If it hurts to speak, don't." Godfrey tells him, "Go, take the core." He grabs it, mana flooding through him, his frame growing slightly taller and broader. Godfrey checks the tablet in his head afterward. Tier 3.4. Potential still at 6.0. He hit the ceiling of low tier in a matter of days. 3 weeks later, Godfrey's walking back into Manhattan High's hallway, bag over his shoulder, and the whole place goes quiet the second people spot him. Whispers about the hero's son being back, someone noting his eyes look different now. Snow's leaning against the wall with some shy freshmen holding a gift for him. Siegfried and Maldred posted up nearby like bodyguards. The second Godfrey walks in, the whole vibe shifts. Snow raises an eyebrow, that same sharp, angelic smile aimed right at him. "How's your head? Siegfried hit it pretty hard. Hope it's okay." They hold eye contact for a second before Godfrey shrugs it off and says he's fine, trying to walk past. Siegfried grabs him instead, skin hardening into jade, and slams him against the wall, grinning like he's not done with him yet, still holding a grudge over the punch Godfrey landed on him weeks ago. He tries to loom over him, taunting him about where his pretty knight is. Godfrey just tells him to get off. Maldred chuckles behind him, which visibly pisses Siegfried off more. Godfrey grabs his arm and rips it off him, and something in his grip apparently sends a sting up his wrist, because when their eyes meet again, his whole attitude drops. Godfrey's eyes aren't the same anymore, sharper, colder, the look of someone who's actually killed and survived situations where dying was a real possibility. Clearly, Siegfried's wondering what happened to him in the last 3 weeks. Godfrey walks off. Maldred tries to lunge after him, but Snow calls him off, saying fights can wait for the upcoming competition. Snow's already clocked that something's changed in Godfrey, that he probably went into a dungeon, but he doesn't seem worried. The gap between their summons is still massive as far as he's concerned. He's already anticipating the competition, proving that hard work doesn't actually close the gap with real talent. Godfrey walks into class and immediately spots Dale holding court with his usual crowd. He ignores all of it and locks onto Isolde instead, who he's been texting nonstop for 3 weeks. She's got earbuds in, staring out the window, and the second he sits down, she turns like she felt him arrive. He expects her usual smile. Instead, she frowns, brushes his hair back with her fingers, calls him out for getting into a fight and hiding his eyes under messy hair. Once she's fixed it, she smiles proudly. "There's the pretty face I haven't seen in 3 weeks. He laughs. Dale looks like he wants to rip that smile right off his face. Around them, people are whispering about how Isolde is basically Manhattan royalty, the only sophomore ever inducted into the Nexus Club and crowned queen within her first month, respected even by fourth years. Everyone wants her, apparently, not just Dale. Cecil's watching from another desk, still turning king deer over in her head every time she looks at Godfrey. She's the school's news writer, and she's decided this story's too good to drop, whether it ends up ruining him or exposing something the staff's hiding. Snow walks in with his crew right as he catches Isolde casually leaning on Godfrey's desk. It's clear it bothers him, watching Manhattan's queen associate with a humanoid summoner like Godfrey. Mr. Edwin shows up 20 minutes late, blaming a coffee spill, then launches straight into today's lesson, adaptive versus innate skills, framed around the upcoming competition that'll decide their points and possibly next valedictorian. Godfrey tunes out completely. So does Isolde. Later, they grab cafeteria food together, chocolate cake, corner table. He asks her outright if she's been to a dungeon. She asks what makes him think that. He tells her the second he saw her, Snow and Dale, he understood exactly what separates them from everyone else. They've survived real life or death fights, built deeper bonds with their summons through it. She takes a bite of cake and asks if he's saying he now understands why people like them look down on everyone else. He tells her the difference was obvious the moment he stepped into his own dungeon, like comparing a grown dog to a puppy. Then he asks what he's ever been wondering, whether the wyvern's actually her only summon. She stops eating, asks what makes him think that. He points out wyverns can't sever a summoner's bond or strip mana enhancement the way whatever hit him and Siegfried in the cafeteria did. Whatever did that, it's got to be seriously strong. "I'm an 8.5 summoner," she says. Simple as that. His eyes go wide. She teases him for losing his nerve. He leans back instead, more determined than ever, already thinking about that second door waiting for him. "I'm still coming for valedictorian." The words land loud enough that the whole cafeteria goes quiet right as a silver-haired guy walks in with an Asian student at his side. Someone whispers in disbelief that Godfrey just said that out loud on the exact day Manhattan's king decided to show up in the cafeteria. Godfrey's eyes meet John's, and in an instant it feels like he's an ant staring up at something way beyond him. Just standing there, John bends the whole room's atmosphere. Nobody meets his gaze directly, like doing so is some kind of offense. He nods at Isolde, walks straight past Godfrey like he doesn't exist, and heads for Snow with some Asian kid trailing beside him. Asks if Snow wants to talk. Snow gets up without his usual smirk for once, looking genuinely serious. Dale visibly braces for John to acknowledge him too, and doesn't get so much as a glance. The whole cafeteria is buzzing. Everyone knows what John showing up means. This isn't casual. It's about grooming the next Manhattan king, and word is Snow's next in line once he hits junior year. Godfrey asks Isolde in a low voice if that's actually Manhattan's king. She confirms it, says he's got a summon that gives him a ridiculous edge, that back when he was a sophomore, he hospitalized 70% of his own classmates. He can't even process that number. Then she suddenly announces she's got a problem. He braces himself, curious what counts as a problem for a 16-year-old Lord Tier summoner. Turns out she's been training on the field every morning and doesn't like the way Dale stares at her, so he needs to come protect her tomorrow at 4 a.m. He rolls his eyes at how transparent the excuse is, and she doubles down, framing it as helping him too since good physical conditioning matters for summoners. He points out she doesn't even stay in the dorms. She explains the headmaster wants her on campus grounds, more given rising dungeon activity and some group called Kane Fanatics. He agrees to show up anyway, partly because he wants to learn more about how Lord Tier summoners actually operate. Her words stick with him though. 2 summoners have changed the entire world before. Adam, the very first summoner ever, whose summon could clear red gates in minutes, split itself to clear multiple dungeons simultaneously, and copy other summons' abilities outright. And Cain, who rose years after Adam vanished, tried to declare himself a literal god, slaughtered millions who refused to worship him, and reigned untouchable for a decade until 7 major cities united to finally take him down. Manhattan, or technically New Manhattan since the original got destroyed a century ago, was one of them. Next morning, fog's still thick on the field. He finds Isolde waiting, earbuds in, completely ignoring him calling her name twice, until he's standing right in front of her. She's listening to some old singer her mom introduced her to, and hands him one earbud to share. They jog together to the music, and once the song ends, her whole demeanor sharpens instantly. She wants to see how strong he's actually gotten and picks up the pace. He pushes as hard as he can and never closes the gap. An hour later, he collapses on the grass, completely wrecked while she's barely winded. Unfortunately, their first class is training, same field. His legs already destroyed. Siegfried and the others mock him the entire time he's still running laps after everyone's finished. Dale joins in too. Isolde doesn't laugh though, just watches silently until he finishes, then rushes over with water. Siegfried starts to make some comment about needing a woman to save him, and the instructor shuts him down hard, publicly calling out the whole group for sleeping in while Godfrey trained before dawn, and still outlasted all of them on the actual assignment. Dale looks humiliated, especially getting called out because of Godfrey, of all people. Something in him snaps. He slams his fist into the ground hard enough to shatter it, sinking his hand into the earth, dust and soil spraying everywhere. Back in the classroom, everyone's suited up in uniform, and the tension's thick enough to choke on. Dale storms in first, barking at people to move, and the whole room scrambles to their seats before he even sits down. Godfrey walks in gulping water, Isolde beside him. The second Dale sees him, lightning bursts from his fingers straight into his bottle, sending a jolt through the water and into him. It hurts, real pain, and if he were still just a normal human, it probably would have knocked him out. Dale rises, lightning crackling off his fists, starting some rant about how he got him publicly humiliated, except the words die in his throat, some crushing invisible weight suddenly pressing down on him. It's Isolde's aura, Lord Tyr, and even Godfrey can feel it lift off him the moment she looks away from Dale. Godfrey tosses the empty bottle in the trash and walks to his seat without saying a word. Dale accuses him of hiding behind a woman, glaring at him while he taps his finger on the desk like nothing happened. Cecil's watching from across the room, clearly confused how he's sitting there completely unbothered after taking a direct lightning hit. Isolde tells Dale, sweetly but with zero warmth behind it, to sit down. He clenches his fists hard enough for the veins to bulge, but his legs carry him back to his seat anyway. He hates it, but he knows it. She's stronger, plain and simple. Snow mutters something lazy about waiting to see how she'll protect Godfrey once the competition actually starts. Isolde ignores him completely, slides an earbud into Godfrey's ear, and quietly tells him to save his anger for competition day instead of wasting it here. Meanwhile, apparently in the staff lounge, the teachers are already speculating about who's going to place in the competition. Edwin's confident it's Isolde first, Snow second, Dale third, dismissing Cecil as strong but not enough to touch Dale. The combat instructor hints there might be a dark horse nobody's accounting for, but won't say who. Competition day arrives. Massive white arena, packed stands, freshmen through upperclassmen all watching. The referee calls the first match, Godfrey against Maldred. He steps out knowing exactly what this is. They put him up first specifically because he's considered the weakest sophomore, someone they can eliminate early. Most of the crowd's already written him off before the match even starts. Maldred climbs the platform from the other side, mocking him for his shield sitting in the stands, pointing at Isolde, who nobody dares sit near. Godfrey reminds him he still remembers the punch he gave him on day one, and the quills. Tells him today he'll show him mercy. That sets him off, and he summons an iron-tusked porcupine boar, elite tier 4.2, taunting him to bring out his knight. Godfrey summons Mountain. The whole arena goes dead silent, watching his shadow stretch across the floor, and even Maldred's cocky grin falters for a second, like he's seeing him for the first time. Mountain's grown a full half-foot since the day of Godfrey's awakening, 7.5 feet now instead of 7. A golden sun crest juts from his helm. 3 brutal spikes now armor his pauldrons themselves. He doesn't look like a knight anymore, he looks like something out of legend. Cecil's staring in disbelief, since this isn't remotely how he looked a month ago. The referee announces his tier, and the whole arena goes silent. Elite tier 4.0. A month ago, he was low tier 3.0. Humanoid summons are famous for growing painfully slow, yet somehow Mountain's outpaced Beast summons entirely. Feeding him dungeon cores explains part of it, but even that math doesn't add up. A low tier summon usually needs months to digest that much core, and he did it in weeks. Maldred's furious. His boar fires quill arrows that just bounce harmlessly off Mountain's hide. Mountain closes the distance, takes another volley of quills strong enough to punch through cars, and just reflects the damage straight back into the boar through his shield, tearing it open. The boar charges blind with rage, and Mountain's armor suddenly crackles gold with lightning, an adaptive skill he's clearly developed just to move faster despite his mass. He vanishes from the tusk's path and reappears at his flank, shield slamming its skull the same instant it tries to snap forward, shattering a tusk and hurling it across the platform hard enough to crack stone. Maldred, desperate, rushes straight at Godfrey instead, spikes erupting from his palms. He freezes mid-strike, some suffocating killing intent hitting him from behind. An instinct alone saves him as he ducks right as Mountain's sword comes down where his head just was splitting solid stone like paper. Mountain's already on him again, shield raised. Maldred rolls, cursing Godfrey's name the whole way, but a casual gauntleted backhand catches him anyway and sends him flying 5 meters, cracking his skull on impact. Even holding back, Mountain nearly caved his head in. Someone in the crowd, apparently Maldred's roommate, mutters in disbelief about how his spikes could pierce walls and he still got demolished, and that Godfrey was clearly showing mercy the whole fight. Mercy, reserved for the strongest. Today he gets to claim it. Godfrey wins. Maldred gets carried off to the nurse. Stepping down, Siegfried's waiting for him at the north door, promising once he's done with Mountain he's going to cave his skull in personally. Godfrey just raises an eyebrow and walks past him without a word. His match starts. Opponent summons a low-tier direwolf, and Siegfried counters with his jade-eyed wolf, elite tier 4.6. His own body shifting into jade, hands twisting into monstrous clawed paws. He crushes the wolf's skull in one hit, then grabs his opponent by the throat and lifts him off the ground one-handed, dangling him while staring straight at Godfrey, silently promising he's next. The referee's forced to call the match early before he actually kills the guy. Isolde asks quietly if Godfrey will be okay against him. He keeps his eyes on that wolf. Jaw tight. I'll do just fine. I've had my eyes on that wolf for a long time. After several other fights, Isolde finally takes the platform against a blue-haired girl, Lucy, who's already steamrolled everyone before her. Lucy refuses to acknowledge Isolde as Manhattan's queen for associating with a humanoid summoner, meaning Godfrey, and the summons a gemstone unicorn, elite tier 4.4, mounting it with a spear and floating crystalline spearheads. Isolde barely reacts. A wave of the hand shatters incoming shards to dust before they even reach her. Lucy hurls her spear anyway, and Isolde punches through it barehanded, but the shards reform, and one clips her eye, forcing her head back. Lucy gets one moment of satisfaction before Isolde lifts her head again. Eye completely fine. Then Isolde's eyes glow, and something called Dominion hits the platform, some rare skill that projects a summon's aura directly through the summoner's own eyes. Lucy freezes. Her unicorn collapses crushed flat, foaming at the mouth, and she passes out cold. Snow watches this with real gravity for once, explaining Dominion to whoever's listening, a skill that can outright kill depending on the summon's power and the target's will. Elsewhere, watching from a window, Yuan comments to John that Isolde might be as strong as he is. John corrects him flatly. She's stronger, she's got 2 summons. Teachers in the staff section are equally stunned, noting Dale's been frying opponents. Snow's dismantling his effortlessly, and Isolde barely needs her summon at all. Someone asks where this supposed dark horse is, since nobody else is even close to these 3. Eventually, it's Godfrey's turn again, his deciding match. Winning gets him into the quarterfinals. Top 3 overall walk away with high-level dungeon cores. His opponent, Siegfried. The whole arena goes quiet, remembering exactly how this rivalry started. Siegfried bashing Godfrey's head into a wall on day 1, him disappearing for a full month afterward. Siegfried grins, tells him to bring out his 4.0 knight so his 4.6 jade-eyed wolf can prove it's superior. Dale mutters from the stands about wishing he'd gotten to be the one to beat Godfrey instead. Cecil predicts he's not walking out of this one. Siegfried's summon balanced enough to challenge even a 5.0. Godfrey summons Mountain and immediately activates Blackout State. His armor darkens crimson, sword turning obsidian. The referee's eyes bulge, reading off the new tier. Elite 5.0. A jump from 4.0 straight to 5.0. The whole crowd loses it. If this is innate rather than adaptive, nobody actually understands what Mountain really is. His wolf slams the platform, jade spikes erupting toward Mountain, but lightning crackles across his armor and he's already gone, reappearing elsewhere. Siegfried dives at him claws first. Mountain doesn't dodge. His armor shifts to blood jade, and the claws just scrape uselessly off the surface. His shield sends Siegfried flying, then a mana slash tears a gouge clean through the platform when the wolf barely dodges it. Siegfried traps Mountain in a jade prison, spikes erupting inward, except the damage reflects straight back onto his own wolf instead, and the walls collapse, revealing Mountain crouched on his shield completely fine. Furious, the wolf turns on Godfrey directly, spitting a jade spike his way. He swaps places with Mountain right before impact. His shield reflects it, and he follows with a slash that tears open the wolf's crystalline hide. Siegfried charges Godfrey himself next, and he swaps again, leaving him staring straight down Mountain's charge instead. Blood-red spikes sealing off any escape route on either side. Siegfried's voice cracks in real panic now, because somehow a Mountain is using his own summon signature ability better than he ever could. The spikes keep rising, curving inward into what looks like the ribcage of some massive beast, and Mountain's already charging Siegfried through it. That's when Siegfried plays a card Godfrey didn't see coming, summoning a second creature entirely, a low-tier dog, and using exchange to swap places with it instantly. He's suddenly right beside Godfrey, claws already arcing toward his head, while his jade-eyed wolf lunges for his throat at the exact same moment. Godfrey doesn't even have time to think. Pure instinct kicks in. He echoes Mountain's armor onto himself, lightning crackling to boost his speed, and forces his body just far enough to dodge the wolf's jaws before landing a lightning lightning-charged uppercut straight into Siegfried's face. He drops instantly, out cold in one hit. His wolf goes berserk, slams into an echoed shield Godfrey throws up, claws tearing through it since it's nowhere near as durable as Mountain's actual armor. That buys him a second to counter with an echoed sword, but it bounces uselessly off the wolf's jade hide. This thing's at 4.6, nearly double his own base strength, and its defense can shrug off attacks even a 5.0 might struggle against. He drops the shield, rolls away, and swaps places with Mountain properly this time. He carves a gash across the wolf's eye, shield slams it into unconsciousness. Godfrey pulls his helmet off and looks over at that low-tier dog lying broken on the ground, spikes through it, whimpering. Siegfried had 2 summons this whole time, and if he hadn't reacted fast enough, that would have been him bleeding out with his face torn open. There was no mercy in Siegfried's eyes going for that killing blow. The crowd's stunned. Orwin can't believe Godfrey actually beat Siegfried. Cecil, watching closely, notes his knight's growth rate, and skill copying might put him in the same league as Dragon Tier potential. That he's not some mindless golem, he's genuinely intelligent. Dale dismisses it as Siegfried just being careless. Turns out Godfrey's facing Cecil next round. She's smug about it. Her own summon sitting at 5.8, trained in ancient Muay Thai, and critically, no innate skill of its own to copy or exploit the way he did with Siegfried. Orwin almost feels sorry for him, says his fate's already sealed. Dale tells Cecil to make sure Godfrey understands exactly why humiliating him won't happen twice, and to keep him away from Isolde entirely, since he's apparently dragging down her image. That night, lying in bed, Godfrey runs the math. Cecil's summon is genuinely terrifying. No innate skill for Mountain to copy. It means their usual advantage disappears completely. For the first time since coming back, he actually feels like he's hit a wall. He drops into his soul space anyway. The second door is almost entirely wood now, just one thin petrified strip left holding it shut. One more push, even a small one, and it opens for good. He goes straight to his laptop and starts searching green dungeons around Manhattan. Slim pickings compared to somewhere like Amazon City, most already claimed by guilds or cleared out. Then he finds a video, a girl crying at the entrance of some abandoned subway station, talking about losing her father and little sister down there. Ordinary family, nobody paying attention, video barely getting traction, some comments even calling it fake. He closes the laptop, throws on a black hoodie and jeans, and heads out as the sun sets. One goal tonight, clear that dungeon, open that second door. Cab drops Godfrey off at some abandoned stretch of land, a domed subway entrance overgrown with weeds, buildings a full kilometer away, barely visible lights flickering in the distance. The driver hesitates, asking if it's really okay for a kid to be out here this late. His eyes glow for a second before he answers, tells him he'll be fine. He heads down the dusty stairs, rats scattering into cracks as he moves. For a second he worries this dungeon's already been cleared. Everything looks abandoned, silent. Nothing but cobwebs. Then he reaches the bottom step, and everything changes. His torch catches a group at the far end of the station, 15 hobgoblins, crude armor, wolf-like ears, crimson skin, celebrating around a fire, loot bags slung over their shoulders. The second his light hits them, the noise stops dead. He locks eyes on their chief and spots a gold ring necklace hanging from his neck. The exact one that girl from the video was wearing. His chest tightens. She didn't just film this place. She went in and never made it back out. The chief points his sword at Godfrey, screaming something he somehow understands instantly. Hold that meat. They charge. 15 strong. Godfrey echoes a gauntlet onto his fist, lightning crackling across it, and falls back on years of actual boxing training from before he ever awakened anything. Ducks the first swing, counters into a jaw-shattering hit, spins into a second that shreds straight through a shield and caves in a ribcage. 2 more come at him and he blocks with sparking forearms, eyes locked on the chief, who's just standing there smugly inspecting his blade, waiting for his warriors to finish the job for him. Godfrey retreats, weaving through their attacks, and the chief starts shouting orders in a panic. Too late. Mountain's already materializing behind him, and one backhanded slap sends the chief's head flying clean off before he can even turn around. Mountain tears through 3 more, with a single wave of mana energy off his blade. Godfrey punches one into a wall, lets his armor absorb a blade strike that instead impales the attacker on his own shoulder spike, and finishes another with an echoed sword that shears clean through its weapon and into its neck. When he looks up, it's over. Bodies everywhere, green blood soaking the floor, Mountain standing at the center of it all. He lets out a breath. You know, for the first time, I feel like going back is the way forward. The staircase behind them isn't cement anymore. It's raw carved stone, spiraling up into somewhere else entirely. They climb, and at the top they're standing under an alien sky, purple moon, red bleeding stars, a canyon stretching out around them. Godfrey makes some comment to Mountain about the weird sky. He doesn't answer, just goes rigid, staring up at the canyon ridges. Godfrey follows his gaze and realizes both sides are crawling with red-skinned hobgoblins. They just walked straight into their military camp. Stones, spears, and arrows rain down immediately. Mountain covers him with his shield, everything bouncing harmlessly off. Then a towering blue-skinned orc general starts screaming orders, and his own warriors start dropping around him for no visible reason. Invisible impacts, crushing chests and punching holes clean through bodies. Confused and furious, he leaps down and slams a massive bone club into Mountain's shield, hard enough to drop him to one knee and crack the ground beneath him. Then the general splits into two. Those two split again. 4 identical high-tier orc generals, easily 5.2 each, surrounding Godfrey, all of them jeering. Mountain steps forward, armor darkening crimson, black lightning crawling across him, cloak turning black as night. Godfrey puts a hand over his face, almost laughing. For a second there, he genuinely thought he was dead. Instead, his eyes flare bright, reflecting that purple moon overhead. Thank God for this skill.